thing that really woke me up was this halving. Now, the reason halving is important is because at the same time, get this, this is why I converted over to Bitcoin. This is my reason, and is that at the same time the Fed is printing trillions of dollars, Bitcoin is tightening. So Bitcoin's getting harder and the dollar's getting softer. The Fed is centralized banking. So central is also communist, command and control of a central government. That's communism. Whereas what Bitcoin, gold, and silver are, they're not controlled by anybody. So one of the reasons back in 72 when I started buying gold was because the Fed couldn't mess with it. They do mess with it to some degree, but they can't print a lot of it. And that's what I don't like about saving dollars. I call it people's money because there's not one person like Jerome Powell.
Do you have any concerns about a large nation state that has interest in just actively destroying Bitcoin to make their own, super rigs and design chips and just throw hundreds of millions or billions of dollars to intentionally disrupt the blockchain?
Yeah, I don't worry about that at all. This cannot be done with Bitcoin anymore. This is something that can only be done with nascent altcoins. Bitcoin has achieved a level of computing that no single nation state can overthrow it through computation alone. The effort to do so would require a massive covert operation of chip fabrication, then the coordinated assault that would give them dominance over the next block for 10 minutes until we kick those bastards off the network, rework the protocol around them. They would be revealed. They would have lost $1 billion doing this, and all they got to do was one double spend.
Let's talk about this whole microchip conspiracy theory. So basically there's this patent. This is by Bill Gates and Microsoft. Applicant, Microsoft. This part is just showing that the applicant agrees with what it's saying. So real quick, let's talk about this name. 2020-666. Guys, I'm not even religious, but when I tell you I choked. Okay, pause real quick and read from here down. Now let's talk about what this is. Mechatronic systems control via neural interface neurographs. When I tell you guys what this is, oh my. Pause real quick. Pause real quick. Pause this and read this real quick. So basically there's you, then there's a sensor, then there's the device, which is going to be the chip, and that's going to communicate with the communication network, which who's looking at that? And then that's going to go to whatever the fuck that is, and then it's going to connect to the cryptocurrency system. Come back for the next part.
Former boss at Coinbase, the CEO, Brian Armstrong, sent out last week. And he said that the Treasury could be, quote, planning to rush out some new regulation regarding self-hosted crypto wallets before the end of the term. Is that true?
Yeah, look, Melissa, rumors abound in Bitcoin more than almost any other place. What I would tell you is we're very focused on getting this right. We're very focused on not killing this. And it's equally important that we develop the networks behind Bitcoin and other cryptos as it is that we prevent money laundering and terrorism financing. So believe me, there's a balance here, and it's going to work for everybody.
So that's neither a yes or no answer to that. Should we be expecting some new regulations by the end of the Trump term?
I think you're going to see a lot of good news for crypto by the end of the Trump term. Some of it's going to have to do with banks connecting to blockchain. Some of it's going to be more clarity around the nature of these assets. So believe me, there's going to be very positive messages coming out. At the same time, it's a dangerous world out there. We have to be honest about that. But nobody's going to ban Bitcoin. Nobody's going to ban some of these transmission technologies. I think it's going to be a lot less.
And of course, crypto is such a volatile space. We've got to start out by saying that the prices can go up and down quickly. But if you're looking out since the beginning of 2020, cryptocurrencies have actually done extremely well versus really any other asset class, including gold. But gold has done better than things like stocks and bonds. So crypto's really been fueled by increasing institutional interest, some more interest in decentralized finance, which is kind of a new way of trying things related to financial applications. And it's really gaining popularity. So it's done extremely well. And an index, the Bloomberg Galaxy Crypto Index, is up about 66% this year.
the general statement, which is true, is that we all tend to be dismissive or negative of things we don't fundamentally understand. And I think it's reasonable for a guy who's made $50, $60 billion by owning things like Coca-Cola and Gillette to not understand Bitcoin. And forget like the last 13 years of tech as well, which he's also completely ignored. But he's allowed to do that, and he's very successful in his own right. Just like I don't know why I would buy Coca-Cola or Gillette. It just makes no sense to me.
Sure, but
So I'm just as crazy as he is.
Sure, but
one of my important investors was on one of the television shows the last few days, and he spoke about Bitcoin and two of, one, monetary policy, two, and three, COVID. The hits on BlackRock's on our website was 3,000 on COVID, 3,000 hits on a monetary policy, and 600,000 hits on Bitcoin. So what that tells you is Bitcoin has caught the attention and the imagination of many people.
Now, what will happen over time is we'll split into units of measure called Satoshis, 8 decimal places. We have 100 billion Satoshis. And so if you think about any scarce asset, this has to do with what's called the stock to flow ratio, the new flow of an asset relative to its stock. Look at the dollar, the US dollar. We have massive new flow compared to the stock. So it's depreciating, it's devaluing, and it's only going to get worse. If you look at gold or silver, not a lot of new flow to stock. Bitcoin actually is the scarcest asset in the world based on that stock to flow measure.
People one thing to the common person, they're not a tech person, why should they learn about Bitcoin?
Individual sovereignty. So this is the concept where you get to be the master of your own destiny. Right now, we don't have that because if we put money in the bank, it's owned by the bank.
Right.
If we are having wars declared in our name without our permission.
Absolutely.
We are involved in jobs that are patently absurd and that they're contributing to problems that are existentially threatening to us. So how do we get individual sovereignty? How can we put a flag in the ground and say, I am here for the greater good as I see it, and I am well capitalized. I've got the cash to do it. There's only one path, and that is through Bitcoin because it's unconfiscatable, it's censorship resistant, it's immutable, and it gives you individual sovereignty.
We believe Bitcoin disrupts gold. We think it's a better gold if you look at the properties of money and what makes gold scarcity. Bitcoin's actually fixed in supply. It's better than scarce in gold. It's more portable. It's fungible. It's more durable. It sort of equals or better gold across the board. So if you look at a $100 billion market cap today, now last week it might have been more like 200, but so it's actually a buying opportunity. We think that there's a potential appreciation of 30 to 40 times because you look at the gold market today, it's a $7 trillion market. And so a lot of people are starting to see that. They recognize the store of value properties. So we think regardless of the price moves in the last few weeks, it's still a very underappreciated asset.
I'm still trying to wonder what problem Bitcoin solves.
Bitcoin is becoming a digital version of a gold, guy. One key point that's happening this year is Bitcoin volatility has been declining. In fact, it's the lowest ever versus gold. It's lower than 180-day volatility on Bitcoin versus the NASDAQ. It's actually below that of NASDAQ. So every other risk asset on the planet, volatility has been increasing. Bitcoin's been declining. And what's happening with QE, we all know there's limited supply of Bitcoin, and it's becoming. Before it was institutional form, it was retail form, and now it's becoming institutional form. A limited supply, and demand's picking up, and the macro is very positive.
So what do you think most people get wrong about Bitcoin or cryptocurrency?
I think for many people, the concept seems very abstract,
And I think the hardest thing is for people to understand, and to the extent that they get it wrong, I think probably it's because not enough people are explaining it very well, because most of it, people are explaining it as a payment mechanism, not as a store of value, and why it might be a good store of value. So I think people don't understand the philosophy behind it, because the people now in the business were not there in 2009 and 2010. They didn't care about the philosophy. People have gotten to now talk more about blockchain than Bitcoin, because they're just looking for an alternative model to make money, and they don't care about, they're agnostic to the initial philosophical framework that drove people to adopt Bitcoin to begin with and kept it alive from 2009 through 2013 or 14, when all of a sudden adoption started to grow.
I'm looking for Bitcoin to go to 100,000. So that prediction is still in place from 2011. Okay, almost 10 years ago. So that's my long-standing prediction. I recently increased that to 400,000 because I now am completely confident that Bitcoin will compete with gold. So that's the macro trend. That's the multi-decade trend that we're talking about.
And the key point here is, if I put $100 billion into gold mining, I will produce more gold. How much more, we can debate. If I put $100 billion into Bitcoin mining, I will produce no more Bitcoin. I will just produce more security, right? It's impossible. Even if you put $1 trillion into Bitcoin mining, it's impossible to produce more than 21 million Bitcoin. All you're doing is making the network better and safer. But at $1 trillion of gold mining, you will produce more gold. We're just going to debate about how much gold you're going to produce.
Do you
anywhere between 40 to 70% of consumers want to use cash less. They want to move to forms of digital payment. So think about that. Paper money is slowly but surely going away. And what will replace that? Well, what will replace that are all forms of digital currencies. Those digital currencies could be any one of a number of cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin, Ethereum, and others. And also, as we talk to regulators and central banks around the world, there's no question in my mind that it's just a matter of when and how, not if, that central banks will start to issue forms of digital currencies as well. And so,
if you want to buy Bitcoin, be prepared to lose all your money. Yeah. If you want to buy it, fine, but understand what you've got. It has no intrinsic value. It may have extrinsic value, but it has no intrinsic value. If you want to buy Bitcoin, be prepared to lose all your money. Yeah.
PayPal says it will allow customers to buy, sell and hold the cryptocurrency and rival virtual coins in its online wallets. The service will be available to US customers in the coming weeks and some other countries in the first half of 2021. From early next year, people will also be able to use the digital currencies at the 26 million merchants on the PayPal network. Company Chief Executive Dan Schulman says he hopes that will encourage global use of Bitcoin and the like. He says he's working with global central banks on how PayPal can help drive that.
We are still in the review and consideration stage, but we've just launched a public consultation so that consumers and Europeans can actually express their preference and tell us whether they would be happy to use a digital euro just in the way they use a euro coin or a euro banknote, knowing that it is central bank money that is available and that they can rely upon.
there is no Bitcoin company, there is no Bitcoin building, there's not even a Bitcoin server anywhere that you could shut down. It is completely distributed. That's what's unique about Bitcoin. It is, for the first time, a way for the two of us to exchange value online without a third-party intermediary. Until the invention of Bitcoin, for you and me to exchange money online, we had to employ a third party, like PayPal, like Visa, like MasterCard, right? And we live in the 21st century. If we want to have a video call to China, we can do that for free. But to send a couple $100, which is essentially just ones and zeros being moved around, costs 5% plus takes over a day.